Ask the Podcast Coach for July 7th, 2018.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that fun-filled music. That means it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. That's right. It's free podcast consulting. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. Joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Cullison from the AverageGuy.tv. How's it going, Jim?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy post 4th of July festivities. Hopefully, as podcasters, everybody has their fingers and toes intact, or eyes. Or ears. Those are probably the four things we need to. We all need to podcast. So it looks like most of us made it through 4th.
That's good. Yeah, I went the old curmudgeon route this week.
Go to bed at 9, have dinner at Denny's at 4:30, and go to bed at
not quite 9. So much that, but here's when I lived in Cleveland, I got really spoiled. Number one, they had great. I lived in a city called Rocky River, and we could bike. We could bike to the fireworks. It was like maybe a mile. And now I'm living in Akron, and they shoot them off downtown, and that means you're going to spend 45 minutes in traffic when it's over, and it's like, puh. Oh, there's one. All right. Well, they done? I don't know. Are they done? I think so. I don't know. Puh. Oh, there's another one. It's just horrible. So I just went, you know what? Return on investment, I'll pass. So
your neighborhood, fire them off. Usually our neighborhood, we get tons of fireworks here.
My brother has a crazy neighbor that actually buys like commercial grade, like he's crazy kind of stuff. Like you're going to catch somebody's house on fire. And I missed his, demonstration. His was last year. Was just the whole time you're like going, I can't believe this guy's doing this.
Like $1,000 of fireworks.
Yeah,
we had a thunderstorm come through about 10:30, and the wind picked up, and it was going to rain. Like so, everyone fired off everything they had. Like as soon as the wind picked up, it was like an entire city grand finale. Dave, it sounded like a war zone. It was so crazy. I just went outside in awe. It was like daylight. There were so many fireworks being, and then it rained for 45 minutes, and you'd think, okay, it's over. Nobody will come back out. Nope. Whole group of people come back out about 11:30, start firing off fireworks. So,
hey, if you have a podcast question, it's super easy to get involved. Just come out to askthepodcastcoach.com/live, or if you want to jump right into this video, come out to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. And last week's episode had an Easter egg. And I did a test, and that is, I don't know what was going on with, I use the same setup every week, but I had this weird, and it was like this. It was like, grrr.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that. I was wondering what was going on in the background there.
And I have no idea. So the only thing that was weird is, I remember last week I had to pump you up. I had to turn your volume way up. So I think it was maybe it
was like a gate. Because like you would talk and it would go away, and then I would talk and you could hear it, and you could hear it kind of fade in and out.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to the whole episode, but I always try and catch the first 15 or 20 minutes from an intro standpoint, just to make sure I'm not a jackass.
So at the end, I said, hey, I don't know if you noticed this, and I played the noise. I took a sample of it out because I actually put a noise gate in it to get rid of most of it, but occasionally it would pop in there. And I only had one person that replied. So not a lot of people make it to the end of the show, or maybe not making it someplace where they could reply. And he said, I didn't hear it. And the reason I did that is I bet if I'd started off the show by saying, hey, everybody, we had a little technical glitch, blah, 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 blah. And then everybody be like listening to it, like, wait, where is it? Oh, I hear it. And it's, I now have my new analogy for this. If you get bored, go to YouTube and listen to the song Drive My Car by the Beatles, because in the left headphone, Ringo or somebody is banging the crap out of a cowbell. And once you hear it, it is deafening. You cannot unhear the cowbell. And so I thought about that. I said, if I draw attention to the fact that there's a weird noise in this, people are going to be listening to it and it's going to be deafening. Yeah. And so instead, I mentioned it at the very end. I'm like, hey, if you heard that, I don't know what's going on. Sorry, but it wasn't super distracting. It was just kind of like, hey, what was that?
No, I didn't notice it. And I kind of thought, oh, that's odd. And I'd listen a couple times to figure out, like, okay, what did we do wrong? What was the
what's going on?
What was the setup, or what did we have? Oh, we had Dave, let me ask you this. So we had a podcast that I listened to, and one of the guests thought he was on his mic, but it was picking up from the camera mic.
Oh,
and you can't hear that. I mean, everybody else it drives me crazy, by the way, when I podcast with people. They don't tell me like, hey, your is crap. You know, I'm always listening for it, but nobody else, like, you know, your guests aren't listening for that. So anyways, so that's all they had. They didn't have, it was on the wrong mic. It was on the camera mic as opposed to being on the microphone. And he came on ahead of time and said that. But do you, in that situation where it's obvious
Right.
that the co-host every week is on a microphone, do you say something or do you just let it ride?
That's a good one. So it's like we've gone through week 1, they were on the camera mic. Now week 2, they're on the camera mic again.
No, so they say they've done 350 of these and they've been impeccable in quality. And then all of a sudden, 1 week, the audio is coming from one of the co-hosts is coming from the camera mic, right? So every week it's perfect, except 1 week when one of the co-hosts is coming in on a camera mic, and it's obvious, right? I mean, everybody. Do you tell your audience in advance and apologize so that they don't get frustrated and say I'm out, or do you just let it be at that point? I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's not a little tick in the background. This is
I think
pretty bad audio.
I think I would in that case because it is so obvious, and it's going to be so, depending on the scenario, that could be really bad. You know, if somebody's, you know.
Yeah, and that's what he did. He came in the beginning and said, "Hey guys, we just want to let you know we didn't catch this till the very end." And I think what they do is they do a double ender. And so on the co-host who got the camera recorded, I think it was going to the recording hardware from his camera mic that hadn't been changed over, but they were still hearing each other on the microphones. It's one of those hard things you just can't troubleshoot around it. It gets really hard. But yeah, okay, so that's what they did. They let the audience know in advance. I'll be honest, I listened to it for about 3 minutes and I was like,
can't take it.
I mean, I was like, I'm like, no, I can listen to this. It'll be fine. Don't, it's hard though. People are fickle that way. Don't you think? You think listeners are fickle that way? If it's just not perfect, your normal quality, they're gone.
Yeah. If it's
for that episode.
If it's distracting and it's like, ugh, I can't take it. Yeah. I've listened to a couple where I've heard some people make a phone sound really good. Like it sounds like the phone, but it's not distracting. And then I've heard other people that have done phone calls and I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, I can't do this. It just sounds super thin and the person's on a cell phone outside and it's like,
but if they're a guest, if the host has really good audio and the guest is sketchy, that's okay. Right. I mean,
for some reason we give the guest a pass.
Yeah. Well, it's because we know we're not gonna have to listen to it again the next week.
Yeah, that's it. I can make it.
I think if the guest is coming in, I remember I started early, way back in the day. I did a fitness tech podcast and I started it just not using a laptop mic. I just went in a room, we sat around it. I did 2 episodes that way and I got some feedback from somebody who was like, hey, there are other ways. There's other ways that you've done this in the past that you could use. And I was like, okay, well, we won't do that anymore. So,
Hey, we got some questions in the chat room. Mike Delaney says, should you buy the WordPress theme for your website? Back in the day, I used to spend a lot of time finding good free WordPress themes. And by good, I meant this is all I wanted. I want to be able to add a header image. I want to be able to customize the colors of my background and my sidebar. And I want to be able to tell what side I want my sidebar on, if I want a right sidebar, a left sidebar, or both. And that was pretty much it. I mean, I really didn't have high standards. And over the years, I would find one. And then after about 2 years, the person would quit supporting it. And then I'd find another one and the person would quit supporting it. And then I found another one. And after a while, I was like, so I recently found GeneratePress. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/GeneratePress, $39 for, and this is the other cool thing I love about this theme, unlimited websites. And the biggest thing I love about it is on Ask the Podcast Coach, you can go in, there are these things called webhooks, and you can basically say, hey, before the post, put this code. And for me, I have after the post, put this code. And it's basically a link to Jim's website, my website, and how to subscribe to us, I think in Apple and Google, and then a link to hire me as a consultant. And that's on every post now. And what does it do? It literally lets me really customize the colors. It lets me add a header. It does everything I just said for $39. So if you're not looking for anything super duper fancy, but and their support's pretty good. They've got a forum. They've got tutorials. There are other ones. I just started playing last night with Thrive themes, and Thrive themes and Divi are kind of in the same boat, that they let you do a ton of stuff. But once again, I found myself playing in CSS, and that's what I don't want to do. Nothing against code. I'm looking for my audience. I need a code-free theme. And that's what so far GeneratePress is. And I was playing with Thrive themes, and all of a sudden they have, like, instead of saying, here's how you can change all the colors, they're like, we have color schemes. And like, they're what they call orange, I call, I don't know.
Not orange.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I eventually went over, and now again, it was super easy. And they did something that was really cool. They had a video that showed you how to use the inspector in Chrome or Firefox. Like, I just went into my, my sidebar little, I don't know what you'd call that, the background color. And I inspected it, and I saw right there where the color was. And they said, just copy that and change the color to whatever color you want it to be, and copy that and put it over here in the custom CSS. And it was fixed like that. So that was kind of cool. But both of these, Thrive and Divi, on one hand, let you do so much, but inevitably there's always like, I want it to do this one thing. And that's where you got to go into the extra stuff. So
Dave, you actually, a little secret, when you said inspect, right? So when you're in Chrome and you go in and inspect the code, you kind of highlight the area that you're looking at and then go into the tools and inspect. You can actually change the code right there on the website and test it.
Yes. I did that by accident last night.
It's
actually
super cool. I have watched, my interns have been updating. It's crunch time at Gallup this week, as our high school interns are re-releasing code for and we actually use Blogger for ours, which is stupid. No one should start with Blogger, but it's what I inherited. And so they have to do a lot of code to fix it. And I watched the interns go into that inspect tab. And as we're talking about changes, they're mocking it up in real time using the inspect tab. Then they just take what they did and apply it to the code on the other side and get it done. So it's not quite average guy, but it's pretty close. Like, with a few extra steps of changing colors or changing numbers or changing pixel width or some of those kinds of things, the average guy can do it.
Yeah. But so you don't have to buy your theme, but because WordPress changes all the time, you kind of almost need somebody to make sure it stays up to date with that. Same thing, like when people, we'll take a tangent. People want to buy an app for their podcast. And so I had somebody one day say, hey, like, why do I have to pay $10 a month to Liston? I'm like, because iOS is going to change over and over and over and over. And so is Android. And you need somebody to keep that app working with the new operating system. So it's kind of the same thing. So, but there are free ones out there. It's one of those things, again, do you have more time or more money? Because it's going to take some time to find the good free one.
No.
GeneratePress, by the way, does have a free version. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's a way that you can kind of test it.
I say pay whenever you can. Listen, paying for a theme doesn't guarantee it's not going to stop being supported.
Right, that's true.
It doesn't.
Alas, appendipity themes.
Yes, no, very popular appendipity, right? But I think it decreases the odds of it, and it's just good when you have those kinds of folks doing that kind of support and building that kind of stuff. It's worth the $30 or $40 or $50. Yeah. You know, thinking you're going to come out and do a podcast that's completely free is probably unreasonable. You know. And if you're going to spend money on anything after you've bought your microphone, themes and your web presence, I think, is kind of important. I mean, actually, I think hosting is next, right? I think it's microphone, hosting, website. Yeah. Because you can have a website, but if you don't have hosting, you don't have a podcast, right?
Or if you like, I have one of my websites, I have to figure out which one, is on a non-WordPress optimized host, and it loads much slower than everything else I do, but it's like $3 a month versus 10. And I'm like, yeah, that needs to go. We need to upgrade that. So the one and only Emily Prokop, who I have come to the conclusion, Emily Prokop is the new Steve Stewart. If you think about it, she's doing the Steve Stewart. Now, what's the Steve Stewart? Steve Stewart, and still does this. Steve now runs a Facebook group, and everybody just knows Steve. But if you think about it, every time you turn around, there's Emily Prokop.
Yeah.
It just, there she is again.
I know.
And then we start talking about her, and then people are like,
and she's super generous, by the way.
She's awesome. From the story behind podcast.com. She says, aside from Liston, are there any other hosts that can make an Alexa skill for a podcast? Well, for the record, and I don't. It's not that hard to make your own scale. It's really not. If you just Google make an Amazon scale, it's the fun part is you need an RSS feed. Technically, and this is where things get weird. Your media file needs to be 256 kilobits per second stereo. Don't know why, because it's coming out of a speaker this big. But if you look at the what would the feature, not feature set, the thing that you need to meet this criteria, the criteria, I guess, for that is that there are companies that will just do that. I can't think of one, but I know they're out there that will make a skill for you. And it's like $10 a month. Or
does
20.
Libsyn have its own skill? So like Spreaker has a skill. You can say, hey, device, open
yeah.
Spreaker.
No, we don't have one for
Okay.
Libsyn. We make one for you.
Got it. Yeah.
So that you can say, hey, enable School of Podcasting, and
the Spreaker one's pretty cool. If you say, I think this works. If you say, hey Echo. No, it's not gonna work. Echo, open Spreaker.
Welcome back. To resume last played episode, Home Gadget Geeks 334, live, say, resume. To listen to something
Echo,
different,
stop. So that if you just, the wake word for Spreaker, just open Spreaker.
Oh, there you go.
And I always say hey, and with
I found some podcasts.
Echo,
First one
stop. Yes, she did find some. She's
Of
waiting.
course.
Okay, thank you. So could you hear that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of
Sorry, I don't know that one.
okay. Let's get her to stop. It's there's the other problem, right? There's the ever
There's a bingo
listening,
card, I think.
the ever listening device. Well, that is kind of nice. I don't have to, with Spreaker, I don't have to create my own app. I can just, if I educate my listeners to use the Spreaker app, would you just enable the first time? You don't even have to open your phone. You just enable it. Would you like to enable the Spreaker app? And they say yes. And the beauty of that is it's a pretty robust player for voice. And so you can advance, you can go ahead 30 seconds, you can pick the next podcast. And then once I open it, I just say play Home Gadget Geeks. And you heard it was playing, I test that from time to time. So it's another way to do it.
The thing I like about the Libsyn app is if you put in your iTunes episode numbers, I can say play episode such and such of the School of Podcasting. And then there's a cool fast forward. I can say skip ahead 2 minutes, and she'll skip ahead 2 minutes. It's pretty slick.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go in and check my stats. I haven't in a while to see what kind of plays I'm getting over there, which is interesting because now I think about it, I'm not exporting at 256. So I think that's one of those like requirements that's like in quotation marks.
Sneaking through.
Yeah, it's I think it's as long as you're not sounding like bacon underwater. Plus, there's so many skills now that they would have to have a serious staff.
Is that cost?
No,
Libsyn?
not a penny.
Part of the $20.
Yeah. So, and it's we're this close to making it to right now. You have to email Rob, and he puts you on a list, and then it goes through that. But we're this close to where just go in and put in your information, and it happens.
Yeah, I need to do a roundup this weekend, or probably not. Next couple of weeks, it's going to be busy for me. But I need to do a roundup where I get on all the devices and work through both Siri and work through Google Now or the Google Assistant, work through the Amazon Assistant, work with Cortana, and just figure out all the right ways. And then just have a page on my website that says, hey, if you have these devices, here's how you enable listening. And it'd be good for me to know, and two, it'd be good to have let my listeners know that for these enabled speakers or these digital assistants, whatever we want to call them, this is exactly how you get it done. It might be a good idea to have, because it's changing rapidly. I have an NVIDIA Shield, which is like a media extender for your TV, right? It's got Android TV on it. In its current update, it got the full Google Assistant, which is pretty cool. So I have some Bose headphones that just got enabled with Google Assistant. So
Nice.
Now you can say, okay, Google, or Google, whatever it is, as you're listening to the headphones, and it will do its thing that way. So more and more devices are coming out. I think it's probably good we start having lists. It's the early days still, but it's probably good that we start having lists for our listeners. Hey, here's some new ways to listen.
Yeah. Man, we got a bunch of questions. Oh, and I just clicked on the wrong button. Oh, what did I do? I deleted Jason. I'm sorry. I deleted your comment.
Oh, well, let's see if I can find it here. Did he have?
It was something about Pippa. And I went to click on it to highlight it, and instead it went poof. And I was
Write
like,
it again. He understands.
um,
He understands. There was a question earlier. You suck. That was funny. Scott had asked a podcasting question for Jim. He said Spreaker seems confused about the HTTPS RSS feed. As you probably know, they're currently users who they're telling current users to just wait a bit. But it also looks like they have a tutorial graphic to explain what to do. So what do you do, right? What do you do now? I think the issue, right? Most of us know that it seems like in the future, Apple and everybody else is going to require a secure HTTPS feed to make this work. So whether you're on Spreaker or anybody else, you need to ask yourself the question, when the RSS feed is being created, is it being created with a secure socket, right? Secure socket layer. I think, Scott, Spreaker's pretty, and I haven't dug into this, they're pretty smart over there at Spreaker. So I think I heard Rob say in the Spreaker live show, they're working with Apple directly on how to migrate some of the Spreaker feeds automatically onto HTTPS to get that done. So what they're saying is, well, hey, we don't want to migrate these and then break them. So let's make sure before we migrate them at Spreaker, because Spreaker has to do the migration, right? That's where it has to happen. Before we start migrating people, let's make sure every receiver of this feed can handle secure RSS. So, Scott, I think that's what's happening there. Rob Greenlee is super approachable. So if you send, I think it's rob@spreaker.com. Yeah. I think if you send him a note, he'll get back to you on some of those. I haven't worried about it. To be honest with you, I guess I should, because our entire Gallup feed is on Spreaker, but I haven't even given it a second thought. I'm assuming they're going to take care of it. So, Dave, have you been dealing with that much on the Liston side? HTTPS?
Yeah, we basically have it set up. We're working with Apple to where they're just going to update all those. It's one of those things that's weird. If somebody said, I really need a secure feed, they're already secure. If you just put it sounds weird, but if you just put an S in it, it's secure because the back end is already set up to do that. You guys
set it up that way. Yeah.
But we're working with Apple to just say, look, if it's blah, 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 Libsyn, blah, blah, just can you go through your database and put an S in front of it? So, but yeah, that's one of those things I think eventually we're all just going to migrate over.
It'll be non-event. It'll be the whole internet will be that way. So I can't imagine. It's surprising that, most of the impetus to do this is Google has said it's going to demote sites that are not secure starting on a certain date. And I don't know what that date is, but it's coming up. And so everybody's kind of in a panic about it. There is no reason RSS feeds need to be secure. There's just no reason.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
It's an MP3. Like, there's no information on it. In fact, you want it unsecure. You want people to get access. Like, you don't want to have to you don't want to have to make a secure connection to your host provider to download an MP3, right? It's public. It's unsecure by its nature. Yeah. So it's silly what we're doing here. This is kind of a silly, but the whole internet needs to move to the secure socket layer. So it's one of those kinds of things that it's just gonna happen. It's silly, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah, Daniel says it's the Y2K of podcasting.
It totally is. It totally it's unnecessary. I do agree. Like, we just need to get everything HTTPS. We need to stop goofing around. That's the way it should have been done in the very beginning. The pieces when the internet first started, all those pieces were not in place. Honestly, in 1973, when we invented the internet, when DARPA invented the internet, they weren't thinking about that. It was secure by its own nature, and nobody knew it was there.
About it, right?
So they weren't necessarily thinking about the security of it. But in 2018, everything should be HTTPS. If your website isn't, it's not hard anymore. Like, most providers are. You can go and just get a free certificate to get it done. Like, it's way easier today than it was even 2 years ago. So if your website is still HTTP, you probably need to do a little bit of homework to get it HTTPS.
Yeah. Jeremy Dennis asks, I'm thinking of moving to Libsyn. I've heard Dave mention that using SOP free gets you the remainder of the current month and all of the next month. Is that still correct? Yes, it is. So if you did that right now, you would get all of July for free. And then you would get a full month, which would be August. So if you joined right now,
So
you would,
it would be advantageous to join on the 2nd of the month. You
Yeah.
get 2 months free.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So
a good little
but,
hack, little
yeah.
Liston hack.
yeah, it's all one word, SOP free, which also, by the way, works at Blueberry and Spreaker. So I'm covered on that.
Jason's got his question back.
Yes, he says, do you plan to try out Pippa? Well, if you've been listening to the history of the band Six Shooter, yes, I am. That's basically why that podcast exists. And what's really sad about this, and I'll expand on this, but I started that podcast and then they started doing really slimy stuff. Like I got an email from a listener of mine where they basically called Libsyn liars. They like almost liable. They completely lied about their stats. Like we did that on purpose. Like we like, oh, look, let's massage the numbers to make our listeners think no. So that's when I was like, nah. And then I've heard so many people say they get, the minute you sign up at iTunes, a lot of times you get a thing from Pippa that says, so I'm not really crazy about the way they market. So it's one of those where it's like, but is that one of your criteria, Dave? Do they change your thing? Do they like, I don't have in there, and they're cool with their marketing. They don't attack other people. So that being said, the thing that's weird about Pippa, number one, the big one was they have transcripts built in. Now I need to go over here where I'm not logged in. And maybe in the post show, I'll show you what's going on back there. But their business plan is a little worrisome to me because I can't find here we go. Their pricing is very SoundCloud-ish. And by that, it's $12 a month if you buy annually. Unlimited episodes. 5,000 downloads a month. That's new. That is new. See, then this is what I tell people. Because it used to be unlimited downloads per month. So it was upload as much as you want, download as much as you want, X amount of money a month. And I went, that's a bad business plan. So now they don't make my criteria. I want unlimited downloads. I would much rather have the opposite. Limit how much I can upload. I don't have to worry about my audience. But I see for the $20, yeah, they've changed a lot of things over here. $20 a month influencer pack where you get on Spotify, YouTube, webhooks, whatever that is, and SoundCloud. Reach further and grow faster. Push your content far and wide. So they basically have destinations. Their stats are okay, but annoying. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do that now. What should I do that now or in the post show?
Yeah, no, jump in. Let's
do it now. Okay. So if you're listening to
the audio, you want to come over and watch the video.
Yeah, exactly. So let me log in here.
Dave, how do folks, if they're regular audio listeners and we say that, how do they find the video of this? Where's it at?
That's something Sean from Be Your Own Nerd has said, hey, because he's an awesome supporter, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But he said, hey, you put the audio in the Patreon, but you don't put the video. And I'm like, I need to start doing that. I need to just put the audio and the video.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Website. That's kind of dumb of me to do that. So thank you, Sean, for politely smacking me in the head and going, what's up with that? Okay, so and what's fun about this is one of the things I like as much as I'm kind of the podcast punching bag, crash test dummy, whatever you call it. I like starting new shows because it reminds me that when you first start, nobody's listening, especially if you're doing a diary from 1995 about being in a country band. So if I go to analytics here, this drives me nuts. They show you, I guess it's your top 5 downloads. I can sort these, but and if I export these, their export's really bizarre, where it shows how many downloads you get per episode per day. So it's like, here's episode 1, you got 2 downloads yesterday. I just want to see, and this is where almost like when you learn software, like if you use Audacity first before you use Audition or whatever, you're going to get stuck with Audacity, not stuck, but you're going to love Audacity. You're going to go through that learning curve. And so my problem is I'm used to Blueberry. I'm used to Libsyn. And to me, the fact that I can only see 5 of my episodes here, I'm like, okay. But you can see, I think my most downloaded episode has 27 downloads. They have a referrer, which most hosts don't have that because you can't really get that information anymore. So I'm letting it know that I'm using Podcast Mirror for this because I wasn't sure how long I was going to hang around on Pippa. They do have this stat, which is how many people are listening on an iPhone versus an iPad versus a computer. This, I asked them the time of day. I'm like, is that my time zone or like the listener? And they said, no, this is my time zone. So apparently people are
it's there. It's probably UTC, and then it's displayed in your time zone.
Yeah. So when I saw that they were giving time of day, I was like, oh, good God, no, because this is another stat for people to obsess over. Like I need to release my show at 4 a.m. because that's when everybody's listening. I'm like, no, to me, I see that and go, yeah. Here it's showing I'm primarily iPhone, other Android, and a little bit of Windows, a little bit of Mac. And then here they have your user agents. You have your typical map. And then I don't know if I click on the United States, if it does a Libsyn. Yeah, it does. So it breaks it down.
San Jose.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Why would you have 88 in San Jose?
Because they're country music fans. I don't know.
So apparently San Jose is that's my hometown, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And that's where, all the way up to high school there.
But you can see here's my total, but this again is for June to July. And I don't know, is there a thing here to say, yeah, since inception. So if I do that, click outside, does it redo my stats? Yeah. So you can tell when I release a new season on this. If I go back to shows, this is where it was interesting because it used to be I could just make as many shows as I wanted and upload as much as I want, which you still can. But if you get a popular show, it's going to be an issue. But they have this, their player is this. It's not bad. I can choose, they
pretty
have
standard. Players are pretty standard now.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to think of, here's their.
Do they have pretty link functionality built in?
Kind of. You can make your own kind of. Here's
that's
what their website looks like for. So if you don't want to, have a WordPress site, and I think the difference here. Nope, I was wrong. I was thinking you could go in and make additional pages, but apparently I think you're stuck with what you get. But it's much like Podbean, Libsyn. The basic website is just that. It's basic. I got to be in an episode. I'm like, why am I not seeing? Yeah, this is where you can go into the transcript, and I can actually say, hey, give me a transcript of this. Now, I did this, and what's cool about this with the history of the band 6-Shooter is I've already got a transcript, which you can't see me holding this up, but you can listen to the transcript. All right, I've already transcribed. I'm reading the diary. And what was cool is I was able to then have this transcribe an episode and compare it to the original one in Word. And it was 70% accurate. And to me, that's not a good number. They do have this thing that I've not played with called the snipper, where apparently you can go in and make little snippets to play on Instagram, or it's basically the headliner kind of tool, that free tool. So it's not a horrible platform. It sounds weird. They are kind of annoying with this little widget thing, which I forget the name of this. Everybody's using intercom. That every time I pop in here, they're like, hey, I'm like, oh, I just want to add an episode. But that's, so it's interesting. I am not shocked that they have changed their pricing because they were set up to fail. They were using the SoundCloud pricing. And this is the other thing I think it's funny. Everybody has this button now, which of course is advertisers. And it looks great because you can say, hey, we'll help you find an advertiser. But unless they're working through Triton or somebody, it's one thing to say, I will help you get an advertiser. It's another thing to actually have an advertiser for you. And again, most advertisers that are going to advertise on a national level want that at least 5,000 downloads per episode kind of thing. But that's it. It's kind of funny because I keep playing with these different, the different platforms. And in the end, it's always kind of like, well, I want to see if they're as good as Libsyn or Blueberry or whatever. And it's always kind of like, nope, they're not bad, not horrible. It's just, it's like I said, when when they came out swinging, I was like, ooh, I don't even want to promote you now. That's not cool.
Are you on the $12 plan? Are you paying?
I'm on the $12 plan. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and you can see 5,000 downloads per month. If I think I have 27 episodes now, something like that. So that means in theory, so you're probably now I'd have to go look at my numbers in the School of Podcasting and see how many downloads I get a month. Yeah, that's 185 downloads per episode if I have 27 episodes. But it is odd. I think Buzzsprout is another one that limits the amount of downloads you can have. And I'm like, that's a deal breaker.
Does
and
Podbean?
Podbean does not.
Does not. They're unlimited.
In fact, Podbean is one of the ones that they're one of the cheapest out there that has that model of we limit a little bit of what you can upload.
They've been doing it for a while too. I think when you look at some of these new companies, Pippa, some of whatever, you got to kind of see like, I think how long are they going to be around, and not just around, but how long are they going to make updates? So, I post stuff everywhere, and I watch these sites,
right.
Podcasts.com, Mixcloud, Audio Boo, or what became Audio Boom, Audio Mac, Shout Engine, right? All these different ones. And many of them, Dave, haven't made an update in 2 years, or maybe 3 since I've been using them, right? I mean, and you're like, it's Audio Mac happens to be way different. They're making massive infrastructure upgrades right now. They're kind of a mix. They're music, right? They're big in the music. They're like SoundCloud more than they are podcast hosting, but they still host podcasts. In fact, if you click on upload, it'll give you 4 different things. Is this music? Is this a mix? Is this a podcast? Is this going across? So you have some options there with those services. I just always kind of question, they all came out of the gate super strong. Many of them have never updated since they came out of the gate. Do I want to, I think about all the iterations Liston does. You guys are constantly being innovative in what you're doing, right? Blueberry, Spreaker, right? Same kind of thing. So,
here's a fun one. This is depressing. But I went to look at my monthly numbers, and they're going down. Apparently, I'm losing my audience. This is for the School of Podcasting.
No.
But in January, of course, everybody's jumping on the podcast bandwagon. But you can see in February, 31,000. In March, 23,000, 21,000, 19. I'm losing like 1,000 people a month. I need to go.
When was the change, though, the Liston counting change?
That was in November 2017.
Oh, so we can't blame
I'm slowly losing a little bit of my audience here. But if I had that, I would have to be on the $50 a month plan at Pippa.
Yeah.
And
hey, Max jumped in to join us. Hey, Max. Yes. Welcome.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I wanted to ask a question. I have an event coming up where I will most likely be doing a live show out of a vendor's booth. And I want to know, what kind of equipment am I going to need to do a live show? And it's probably going to be on Facebook Live, because they probably have over 10,000 Facebook followers and maybe 200 YouTube followers. Mm-hmm. So and would I need 1 laptop or 2 laptops to really do well? So what would you guys recommend as great equipment for a live show?
Yeah, Max, I do this 3 times a year. So I have a little Alesis Multimix 4. It could be anything. It's just a mixer that's USB, right? So don't get hung up on that. Just get the most inexpensive one that you can. I like Mackie because they're durable, but if you're just doing this once, go something cheap. It needs to be USB enabled. I use ATR, the 2100s. They're great. 2005s. They're great at conferences. One of the things I've gotten into in the past or recently is using these arms, but I buy the cheap newer arms. That sounds funny, newer. Excuse me.
That's the name of the company.
That's the name of the company, but they're like $15, and I actually I screw them onto the tables when I'm there so that I can move the mics around. Right. I like. We talked about this last week. I try not to push headphone sound out to the listeners, the guests that I have. So you come right out of the board and monitor the sound yourself, but they don't need to hear themselves. And then 1 laptop. And I always request at conferences that I get wired connection. Don't do the conference Wi-Fi. It'll suck. And I go out to the facility in advance if I can and do a speed check just to make sure it is what they advertise it is. I've actually had to troubleshoot 2 or 3 different conference facilities to say, I don't think you guys are getting what you think you're getting. You might want to call your service provider because I think you're getting ripped off. So one laptop. The other thing I like to do at a conference, Max, is have a big monitor on the table that's just mirroring my laptop screen. So people think that's cool. They'll see the microphones and they'll be like, what's going on there? And then they'll see you're live on YouTube or you're live on whatever, right? We use Hangouts for that. And it makes them stop. The other thing I would recommend is lighting. So conference areas are notoriously poorly lit. They're lit for mood, not for podcasting. So get a cheap set of Cowboy Studio lights or whatever. That's also a big draw in a conference when you have these big lights up in the air and people walk by the booth and they're like, what is going on there, right? It's as much about the effect of what you have set up as it is about the podcast that you're doing there, right? And so the presentation matters. That's really it. You probably have everything except a mixer at this point, I would imagine. I don't know if you need to buy too much more. Do you have a small mixer, a small USB mixer?
No, I don't. I knew that I was going to have to do that because I just do a single mic
don't
solo
spend
show.
any more than $100 on it. Like you can get a pretty good, mixer just for this occasion for right around $100.
Yeah, and I saw that you had links in the show notes from either last week or the prior week to some mixers. What about speakers? Have you done anything so that the crowd can hear you, or is that just a feedback issue? Or
it is. It's harder. It's harder that way. Yeah. I don't.
Okay.
Dave, any thoughts?
Yeah, that was going to be my thing, because if you introduce speakers, now you've got to have the microphones behind the speakers.
Right.
If you don't, now you've got a feedback problem, and typically. I'm trying to think of any time I've ever done that. You're going to kind of annoy the booth next to you because they're trying to talk to their people about their product. And you're like, hey, we're talking with Jim. And you're like, okay, great. I don't know. I just don't know. I think the power you get from that is, number one, that's why I went and grabbed one. You can get a sign, just a plastic sign holder, and just, put your artwork in there. I'm getting all reminiscent. This is my address when I had an office building. I was like, oh, lower level 41. I remember that. But you could just put this up, live podcasting on, blah, blah, blah. Have your logo there available in iTunes and Google Play, just to make it look a little official. So if people are like, what is he doing? You actually got the answer right there.
Max, how big is this event, and how many other vendors are there? And give me a feel for what the setup is like.
Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty widely spread event, buildings, tents, multiple locations. This particular vendor is often a tent, fairly good sized tent. So it's a little bit isolated from other folks around them.
Okay, so you could set up some speakers that you want to test with this. You want to test the recording with it. You just need to get them pretty far away from the microphones, and then all you're doing at that point is recording the out. What you're coming off the. Make sure you run that sound through the same mixer that you're using for the live stream, and then just test it. Every situation's different. And so you just, you don't know. It's definitely not going to sound as good because it's going to have, you're going to hear a little bit of echo in it, and it's going to sound live. Whereas opposed to if you don't have speakers, you still have that live sound, but you're not getting that boomy kind of potential echo in the background of folks.
Right.
So again, it's harder, not impossible, just harder.
Right.
One more thing to think about.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting trade-off because I'll want to, repackage the show and use it later. But go ahead.
Well, real quick, in the tent, you might actually be able to get away with it more because the sound will leak more.
Right.
And so in the tent, you may have better chances. Sorry, Dave, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was busy getting my sign. Do you have your guest wear headphones?
It's kind of interesting. The vendor is a headphone manufacturer, so it would be crazy.
Yes.
Be crazy not to use their headphones.
So you might want to have a headphone amp then in that case, coming off the board into a headphone amplifier. Yeah. We talked about those 2 weeks ago. I like those art. I think it's art ones, but you can get a Behringer for $30, whatever. Yeah. In that case, you definitely want to. If that's what they do, then you definitely want to have headphones on. Yeah.
Well, and they also have boom microphones with it as well. So now I've got to start to figure out, oh my gosh, does it make sense to figure out how to boost that to a line level so I can use their mic? And I'm starting to think that might be too much trouble. Just put the mic out of the way and use the ATR 2100s. But
they work great. 2100s in live. Oh, I think they're better live than they are in studio. They are really good mics for live. Yeah.
All right.
So used them a ton. They're not good enough. This is the thing. They're cheap enough that the field's not very big around it, and they're gain hungry, which means it's really hard to get too much gain to these things, which means you won't get a lot of feedback because the field they create just can't get that big. Where if you're running a condenser mic, fill in the blank, whatever, those are going to be super sensitive. You could. SM58s, there's no better mic for live than an SM58, and you can run a 58 just like you run an ATR 2100. And they are I think the best live, most durable mics known to man. They've been around, Dave, 40 years maybe.
Everyone I have has a dented windscreen. They take a licking and keep on ticking. It's amazing.
Max, those are $100 too if you're buying new, but again, they are the industry standard. If you're doing anything live, you got to get up on them. That's the other thing live. You want to make sure your gain is set, and you want people like I am right now, right on the mic, like right on it. You don't do this thing where you put it super far away, especially the 2100s. Your sound will be awful. Get those mics. That's why I like those newer arms, because you can get the mic right in their face for those things.
Any special setup with Facebook Live? I know I probably want to record the audio separately because the audio that we'd have afterwards would probably be not good on Facebook Live.
Yeah. Just treat Facebook Live like you treat anything else, like a Hangout or. You don't get as much control with Facebook Live as you do with a Hangout. It's just you're on. Hey, we're live. And I just don't like it as much. I just don't like it. Steve Sleeper asked me that question in the chat room just a few minutes ago if I do much with Facebook Live, and I don't. It's not my favorite platform for that. I should, by the way, but I don't. So go.
Can I feed a C920s into the laptop so that I can use that then?
Got to be powerful enough of a laptop to handle the 920. 920 is weird in that it'll consume 100% of the resources if the driver's not installed correctly or whatever. And but you totally can. And the C920s are super cheap right now. Like they're $60.
Yeah, because there's the C924 or something. There's some new model out.
Full price at Best Buy is like $60, and you're like, oh, yeah. So I use. In fact, I have a little tripod that because the C920s have the camera mount on the bottom. So I use a normal camera tripod, and I just mount that C920 on it, and it allows me to have the right angle or whatever to be able to get the entire table. I wouldn't use the laptop to try and get it's going to be too close, and those kinds of things. So a little tripod is helpful to be able to do that.
And the other thing, make sure you have business cards of some sort,
right,
for people stopping by. I'm laughing. This is an old card. On the back it has, all my shows, and I have something labeled Podcasting Perspectives. I have no idea what that is. I don't know if that was a show I was going to start and then didn't or what, but I'm like, okay, School of Podcasting. Asked the podcast coach because of my podcasting for free, which was killed because the free host I was using went out of business. Shocking. And then Podcasting Perspectives. I'm like, what is that?
So I have to make sure that I don't try and get too far away from keeping it simple. But I'll ask the question anyway. What about multiple cameras on Facebook Live?
Ooh. Yikes! That's a new one to me. You can do that?
I don't know.
You'd have to have a switcher, right? You'd have to have a camera switcher.
So you'd have to have some sort of You'd have to
something would have to be controlling that.
I know. I was surprised because when you start a Facebook Live, it says camera or share screen. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to start off with my camera, and then I'm going to share my screen in the middle of the Facebook Live. And unless there's a button I couldn't find, it's like either or. I could not in the middle of a Facebook Live say, okay, I want to switch my screen. Like now I can share my screen in Google Hangouts. Facebook, it was like, nope, it's one or the other. So I don't know. You'd have to have some sort of, Wirecast or some sort of system. I would just stick with one and
keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So worry about that for the future. I'm guessing if it were Google Hangouts, that would be a little easier.
Well,
Google Hangouts does it on its own.
Yeah, easier is in the eye of the beholder. So
actually, yeah, if you're sitting there next to each other, that's the difference. It does the automatic switching now because it's two different computers. Then you'd have to have two laptops.
You would want two different computers to run those cameras. It's not impossible. Then the one you're controlling, the Hangout, the one that's got the broadcast on it, where you click on the buttons on the bottom here, where we're looking, denotes what they see. So like Dave could, if he wanted to shut me out, he could just click on himself, and then the video would show him, even though I'm talking right now. And so you get a little control that way. You get some camera control that way.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that probably since they've got over 10,000 Facebook users and 200 YouTube users, just doesn't make sense to do the Hangouts.
Well, not only that, but the other thing I would worry about is now if I'm doing Facebook Lives, I'm relying on the Wi-Fi of the venue, and that's where I would go. Okay, that's where you kind of go. And here we go. It's like, because I'm
usually that's maybe worse for Facebook versus Google.
I just think Wi-Fi at a venue 9 times out of 10 is just horrible. It's enough to check your email. I've tried to stream a couple things, and it's always like, you're like, hey, it's working. And then all of a sudden no, it's not. Okay. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, so.
Can you do Facebook Live off desktop?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you could use, and this is from the chat room, you could use OBS or XSplit to capture those cameras and then push it to a Facebook Live stream. You want to do it that way. That, again, you're adding complexity. You're adding a PC that can handle XSplit or handle OBS. So it's adding some complexity to the process if you're gonna go that way.
I forgot about this. Linda mentioned Switcher Studio. I saw them at Podcast Movement 3 years ago. It was if this is the
sounds like that, you might want to look into that one, Max. Switcher Studio, $30.
Okay.
For up to 6 cameras is what they're saying in the chat room. I've never done that myself.
I remember because it was interesting because the guy should have bought a booth, but he didn't. He was just walking around showing it to everybody. I was like, oh, okay. So
Max, is that helpful?
That's incredibly helpful. Thanks very much. I'll start working on my equipment list here and do some tests. I think that's probably the key, is just to test the whole thing out before I show up there.
Yeah, I've done this for 4 years, and if you look back at the very first ones I did, they're dark. The sound's not very good. The angles are bad. Our Wi-Fi, we were trying to do Wi-Fi. It was sketchy. And you can see every time I do it, it gets a little bit better and a little bit better. The point now, I get booked for this thing. I have my partner at work actually just books me for it now. And she's like, hey, you're podcasting these dates. And the equipment's in the back of my car. I pull up. I've got bags. I walk in. We undo everything. We set up the studio. We're done, right? So practice is key, right?
Yep, for sure. And Dave, what is the iPad app that you use for sounds?
iJingle.
iJingle.
iJingle. Again, it's $20.
Got it. I think it might be useful to stick in a 1-minute promo so that I can get a glass of water or whatever. At some point, we need a quick break.
Live, you can get away with a lot more because I think people understand you're doing it live. Breathe. Yeah. Yeah. Max, if you have any hardware problems or questions as you're doing this, just ping me.
Yep, will do. And just to let you know, I'm right next to San Jose. So
where?
I live in Mountain View. So
oh man, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I just can't handle the traffic there. Like every time I go home, it's like, the Bay Area. It's great. It's got a lot of great stuff, but getting on the road any time of the day, it's pretty nightmarish. So, yeah,
it's true, but it's all fun. Hey, thanks guys. Appreciate all your help.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Is that actually blinking on your screen as well?
It is blinking on my side. It was like great attention. It was like, hey, attention to our awesome supporters.
Okay, but it finally quit. Yes, it's caught up. Okay. We're good. Speaking of Max being an awesome supporter, Josh Liston. I actually listen to On the Bubble podcast. It's about shows that were canceled. And he does a deep dive into how the fans tried to get the show to come back. And in some cases they did. It's kind of an interesting show. It's at onthebubble.podcast.com. Greg from debtshepherd.com. Jonathan from, I have this set up. Here, I'll just look at it here. weeklyawesome.com. Glenn the Geek Hebert from horseradionetwork.com. Josh Rivers from podcastingexperiments.com. This guy, the one and only Max Trescott from aviationnewstalk.com, who, of course, is the 2008 National CFI of the Year. What does CFI stand for? Certified Flight Instructor?
That's it.
And it's that. Way to go, buddy. And then Shane from spybrary.com, who I still love your coasters. Then if we get to our $10 patrons, that would be Jeffrey from Podnuts. That's the computer repair podcast at Podnuts. Now, Nuts is N-U-T-Z. Nick Suberling, the Subs from CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Sean Park, I mentioned him earlier from Be Your Own Nerd, except I have a typo there. It's Be Your Own Nerd. I forgot the R in his, if you're looking at the video from this, it's Be Your Own Nerd, not Be You Own Nerd.
Be You Roan Nerd.
Yeah, something was going on there. Doug Salomon from Become Limitless. Eliquity from TravelGlutenFree.com. Corey Finneran from IVNV.com. Jay Cleveland Payne. You can find him at jclevelandpayne.net/podcast. Jason from CUATX. I forget what the show's about. Jeremy Dennis from transmissionspodcast.com. Jim Cullison, who's that guy from the AverGuy.tv?
Sketchy.
Yeah. I lost my video. Joel Sosihai from stackingbenjamins.com. Joe Taylor from On Face Edge. Kim Slusher from On Faith's Edge. Michael Ray. Do we know what Michael's show is?
It could be in transition.
Yes, he's in transition. Aren't we all? Our $5 patrons, Master Cauldron from cauldronscript.com, Rob Griffiths from bedtime.fm/storytime, as well as bedtime.fm/peaceout, Troy Heinrich from blacklistexposed.com, and our new patron, Carrie Bond from Bond Fire Studio. That is such a cool, it's cool enough having the last name Bond, but when you throw in fire, it's like, that's awesome. Our $1 patrons, we love you all. Barb from anchor.fm/BarbTUSA. Sean from clarinet.com. Also, congratulations to Sean. He just had a little baby girl. Creepykingdom.com. Dave from Ottawa Works. Emily Prokop, the one and only Emily Prokop.
This podcast.
And that's not her. That's her. There we go. From the story behind podcast.com. Garrett from crowdfundingchristianmusic.com. Gary and Margaret from beekeepingpodcast.com. Craig from Ingleus Podcast. I can never say Craig without going Craig. Internal Latin Podcast Awards. You can find them at latinpodcastawards.com. Jason from tvtimes3.com. Jeffrey from genealogyshowcase.com. Lucas Apps at triangletactical.net. Mike Moody from MrRobotPodcast.com. Paul from fightingthroughpodcast.co.uk. It's war memoirs. Patrick Keller from Big Seance. Yeah. Big Seance podcast.com. Brandon from Seahawkerspodcast.com. Sean from Slept in Government Class. Basically, you can find that at sleptinclass.com. Steve Sleeper from earn.show. And last but not least, Wayne from mediavoiceovers.com. Now, if you'd like to be an awesome supporter, all you have to do is do what Max did and go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And at the beginning of the month, we thank everybody. So we appreciate everyone for supporting. And also, you will see today in the Patreon group, there's a threshold that if we get to a certain threshold, I actually do an hour of Q&A just for patrons. So be looking for that message to come out over at patreon.com. So.
And let me say thanks too. I say this whenever you read the full list, but it's super important to me. This is Dave's thing, and it's just super important to me when you guys support us. So thanks for those of you who, if you're listening to this and reread your name, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. It's a big deal. Your list is impressive, Dave, and so thanks for what you do as well.
I've started promoting it in other places besides just Ask the Podcast Coach. Like if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/work with me, it's listed there like, hey, there's more tutorials over here. And you can, like Sean last month was freaking out because I think he'd just come on board from Clarinet. He's like, I paid $1 and I got basically almost private coaching with Dave Jackson. He goes, this is bizarre. I'm like, the power of working as a group. So Max, any other questions we can help you with?
No, I'm all set. Thanks so much.
Right. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. Good having you. And thanks for the picture I saw on Twitter the other day. I think you were flying, right? And you were.
Yeah, it was really quite amazing. I was bringing an airplane from Wisconsin to California, and the show popped up at 4,000 feet, and I started watching and listening, and had a friend take a picture of you on the phone as I was listening.
Now that was pretty cool. I'm not sure I've ever had a picture of me podcasting inside a plane while someone's whatever was going on there. So Max, thanks for sharing that on Twitter. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks so much.
If you want to disconnect, the red hang up button will get you out of
Got
here.
it. Thank you.
Thanks a ton, Max.
And,
Dave, I think we're at the end of our time.
We are.
No show.
He said as he tries to fade up the music. What's coming up on the AverageGuy.tv?
Went solo last week or on Thursday. Yeah, my host, 25 minutes before said I can't make it, and so I did a solo show. So I don't know. We'll see. Tell me how you like it. The AverageGuy.tv.
How was that?
It's hard for me. I'm a host guy. I like having somebody else to bounce this off.
Sounds like you off of.
Yeah.
This week on the School of Podcasting, besides I have to go buy, subscribe, share. Daniel, what's the name of your thing? Subscribe and follow.
Social, subscribe, and share.
Thank you.
Something like that.
I'm going to go buy that and put it on my website, and I will tell you my thoughts on that. I'm also going to try to play with Radio Public sometime today. Other than that, I have a couple things that I have a list of things that, like, if all else fails, you can talk about this. Which is kind of interesting, partly due to the July 4th holiday. I kind of lost a day of production. So I'm normally at this point, I know exactly what's going on, and I'm kind of a day behind. So
two Mondays and 2 Fridays this week. It was really weird. Yeah.
So that's what's maybe coming up on the school podcasting on Monday. There's a bunch of things I've been playing with, a lot of toys. So I might just pull a, hey, here's what I've been playing with kind of lesson. But we are here every Saturday, except next week. Jim will not be here. I'll have to figure out who's sitting in the chair for next week. But congratulations to your son. And
Thank you.
But you can join me, askthepodcastcoach.com/live next week. Thanks for being here.